Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I'm here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing all right. About to kick off a real busy weekend with another tournament. So happy to actually get a chance to sit down and do this.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a show at all. We've been hit or miss, but we're glad to be back, and we appreciate everyone who still tunes in and is still excited for these franchise fix episodes, which we have changed the title because Fridays just have not been a thing, and probably won't be if we're being completely honest. Like we were in denial before, but I feel like these are just going to be when they happen, right?
It won't be this Friday. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
I'll be working probably like 9 to 9 at least.
all right. Well,
yeah.
So Friday Fix definitely not coming back this week, but hopefully we'll get you an episode next week too. But tonight we are here to do a franchise fix of the Carolina Panthers because we have not talked to you since they made their massive trade for the number 1 overall pick with the Chicago Bears. Randy, do you have the details of that trade somewhere?
Oh hell. In my head. So they traded the number 9 pick, their second round pick, which I think is 61. DJ Moore.
Yep.
First next year and a second in 2025 was the trade for number 1.
Yes, so that has happened. We have already done Chicago Bears franchise fix. We talked about like redoing it, but at this point, like it'll be nice to just kind of sit down and kind of break down how Ryan Poles attacked free agency because it was definitely not what we did. He threw a lot of money at linebackers today. We threw money at 1 linebacker a piece. He decided to throw money at 2 linebackers a piece or for their team while having a guy that he's praised in Jack Sanborn still on the team. So definitely beefing up that linebacker room there. But
yeah, definitely saw a lot of people confused why he would not pay 1 linebacker who's more of a run stopper $20 million, and he's decided to pay 2 linebackers that are more athletic $24. I think
and
it
get a
tells you
second
what kind
round
of
pick.
line and a second round pick. Yeah, it tells you what he wanted from the room more than anything else.
Yeah. Roquan Smith wasn't really a fit, and a lot of people talked about that. But this isn't a Bears show. We're not going to get too deep into that. I would like to revisit this, especially once the majority of free agency is kind of
I think we could do kind of like a mini Bears redo where we go over the free agency and then maybe do a 7 round for them. Maybe like a 20-minute episode just to kind of rehash it because I think we both want another shot at it. Now.
For sure. But tonight we are talking about the Carolina Panthers. Panthers had to go get aggressive. They have been in this quarterback purgatory type of deal since Cam Newton was there, playing at an MVP level, and then he got hurt. And they've kind of been trying to piece together things since. And Frank Reich, their new head coach, just came from something like that. And this was kind of the writing was on the walls that they were going to get aggressive, and that's exactly what they did. So we talked about the trade, the state of the team. So they did have the 9th overall pick. So they were actually, a little bit better than some of the teams that we've talked about. We were supposed to do the Commanders on this episode, but things have changed since the last time we spoke with you guys. So that's not happening. But overall, the team was close. I mean, their defense is really good. Their Pro Football Focus grade did rank 28th overall in the league because of how bad their offense was at times. There were times that this offense didn't challenge, past 10 yards down the field, and that was mostly due to bad quarterback play throughout, which is why we are where we are, right?
Yeah, 100%. They tried to piecemeal it. They tried to go with like a double shot last year with bringing in Sam Darnold and, you know, going for a
Baker.
quarterback as well, and Baker, and drafting Corral. You know, they wanted a full stream shot at it kind of thing. And they thought they could get one of the three to work, and they're 0 for 3. So they decided to trade up this year to get a better quarterback, just plain simple, and a new contract with a new coach and a new regime. They're just going to try and restart this wheel. And with how they've built this defense, and I do think the past people in here don't get enough credit for how much they've brought in this defense and how good it is. At least at the young core of it, and what they've done for this offensive line and how good that is. So I think there's some things to be said about that, but if your quarterback's god awful and among the worst in the league, you're always going to be really bad. So it really struggled, and we'll fix it now, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, that's among the other differences with the Panthers and some of the other teams that we've talked about is they are strong at the points you want to be strong at. They have good cornerbacks, they have good uh, trench play on both sides of the ball, and they have continuity and consistency on both sides. So that's where this is a bit unique. We have a different type of challenge here. So let's kind of get into it. Their current cap situation. Randy, take us away.
Um, so their current cap, technically, because they haven't made any other moves besides what they've done today. So quickly, they've signed Shy Tuttle 3 years, 19.5 million. Von Bell 3 years, 22.5. That's the only reported number I've seen. We'll see if it's a little different. And then Bradley Bozeman 3 years, $18 million on kind of a hometown discount, if we're going to be honest. So that's a $20 million on the cap for this year out of the 23 that they had, 23.5. So they technically have $3.5 million of cap room right now. But they do have some pretty clear cut candidates. Pat Eiflin, he was kind of brought in to be their starting center. He only started 6 games last year, and Bradley Bozeman took over that role, and then they re-signed him. So I think you can release Eiflin for $4.2 million, and I think that's the obvious choice. Ian Thomas has not worked out. I think if you cut him post June 1st, you get $3.1 million instead of $1 million if you cut him right now. So I think that's a must as well, because there's so many good tight ends in this class. There's no point in holding on $3 million when you have other spots that could really use that $3 million. And cutting Ian Thomas could just bring back a guy like Deontay Foreman, or something small like that. And then Laviska Shenault, he really hasn't produced. He had like some decent plays last year for this team. If you cut him, you save $1.6 million. He's the most you can really cut in that receiving room and make any money. The issue is the receiving room is real bad.
It is. So I added Laviska to this list simply because of how I approach this, and I didn't know where to talk about it. So I have Laviska as a cut candidate because of some of the moves that we're going to talk about here in a second. Jumping back, so obviously Sam Darnold signed with San Francisco today, so he's out. They're not bringing him back. It's very clear that the first overall pick will be a quarterback, so we don't have to spend too much time, laboring over what quarterbacks they're going to add here. Deontay Foreman is a free agent. Matt Ioannidis, Corey Littleton, those were the big ones. Cam Irving is one that's gotten some play. Rashard Higgins had some impactful snaps last year. And Justin Burris was kind of a bigger signing a couple years ago, I want to say, but that really hasn't worked out either. And then restricted PJ Walker, Sam Franklin, Miles Hartfield. So, there's definitely a reason they went and got Von Bell, Miles Hartfield, and Sam Franklin both in that safety room. I think they kind of fixed that already. So Panthers have done a lot of work for us here, which is nice.
Yeah, and I was struggling in the draft portion of this, like the mock, to figure out what I would do at D tackle, and I really struggled in free agency. I really didn't know what they'd be looking for, because all signs are pointing to that they're transitioning to a 3-4 defense, and they have a 4-3 defense currently. And there's also massive talks, that Jeremy Chin is no longer going to be a free safety except on occasional purposes, or strong safety, I guess I should say. he is going to be their nickel as well as a linebacker and kind of be a move piece. So I think that's going to help them cheat the system and getting more linebackers on the field, but a more speedy, aggressive guy like Chin in there. So that really is going to help kind of, transcend their team a bit. But the safety room was their weakest room because of the move piece of Jeremy Chin, because he wasn't just sitting back there. And Xavier Woods is a good safety. I mean, he's not, I wouldn't even say he's necessarily Von Bell's level. So I think bringing in him to really captain your back end is a smart play.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk through some free agent additions. So I did cut all 3 of those guys. I'll wait till after June 1st to cut Ian Thomas personally, but I will get deals done in the meantime. Deals can be done despite that move not being official. It's just kind of like a handshake type of agreement because things can't process through the league when they are over the cap and whatnot. So my 2 signings remaining, because they don't have a whole lot of cap. Deontay Foreman coming back 2 years, $7 million. I think this is important. I think that Deontay Foreman does kind of profile as a Frank Reich type of running back. I think Chuba Hubbard could be good in that system, but we have to remember free agency is happening now. We don't know who we're going to get in the draft. And so add back a pretty important piece to your offense from last year. 2 years, $7 million, 3.5 per. I think that's a fair deal after last year. And then I cut Laviska Shenault in order to create cap for Adam Thielen in this scenario. 2 years, $17 million. I really don't think Adam Thielen is going to command a whole lot of interest. I also think that taking this type of role where he can still produce and getting an incentive-laden deal based on that, hope that he can produce would be a smart move. So adding maybe an aging receiver, someone to kind of anchor that wide receiver room is critical in my opinion. And that's all I did. I spent $31.5 million, which I pretty much was the max that I could after the Laviska cut.
Yeah, I think I wanted to try and find that veteran at the wide receiver position, and I just personally couldn't with the money left over. And it seems like they prioritized, the D tackle and safety position, and that tells us what they're doing at the draft as well. Like they're going to try and find this and that. So I think Thielen actually makes a ton of sense. Maybe him personally is going to want to go to a contender, but I mean, this is a place where someone that wants to prove something can really do it because they got no one else. So I think Thielen works. And, for that part, for my free agency, I picked Paris Campbell for that role. I know we've kind of covered him a decent amount already in these segments, but this is one of the more ideal landing spots for him. I think they could pay him slightly more than other places would. I brought him in for 1 year, $4 million. He would instantly, in my opinion, be their best receiver, and he would be the first down, second down, third down target for whatever quarterback we bring in. I also brought back Deontay Foreman, 1 year, 3.5. So same contract description, except I gave him a 1 year deal. I think they might be looking to give him a 2 or 3 year, but in my opinion, it's just not the smartest move. And then I actually brought in kind of a draft bus in Clelin Ferrell, the Raiders draft bus. 1 year, $1 million though. So they actually rotated him, a little bit inside, actually a good amount inside D tackle this year. And he actually did some standout plays every once in a while. I think he can be a good swing piece for you inside and out, especially with a transitioning team like this. A 3-4 edge is maybe better for him than anything the Raiders were letting them do. I still don't think he's that good a player, so he'd just be rotational. But it's a good depth piece for the edge, especially when you're trying to transition this defensive line.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to pause for some breaking news since we were talking about the Bears. The Bears just signed Titans defensive end DeMarcus Walker to a pretty significant deal, over $7 million per year. He had career highs last year. I think he had 7 sacks. Performed really well, so that's another piece that we will add when we do our little redo in a little bit. But Sorry for the sidebar. Let's get into the draft because obviously that is the main course for this team. They control the draft. There's been some talk that they could, if they know that, they can still get their guy, they'll trade back. I don't think so, though. I don't think that's going to be the case. You don't trade up to one and then trade back. In most scenarios, you're trading up to one to make sure you get your guy. And I don't think that they can guarantee that they wouldn't get their guy at this point unless Houston really tips their hand and they move back one spot. So, Randy, you go first. You go first with your draft.
Okay. I went with CJ Stroud. He's the betting favorite, and it seems like he's the coaching staff favorite. I don't know if he's owner, GM favorite. So this could be Bryce Young. This could be Anthony Richardson. I know this is a team that was doing a lot of, work on Will Levis as well during the season because they thought they'd be picking, around like 6 to 12, and they did, at 9. But they decided they have to go up and get their guy, and I'm perfectly fine with that, and to me, with the Frank Reich system, it just makes the most sense to get, arguably the highest floor guy with some still pretty high ceiling and a guy that is going to be able to work with weapons and really kind of lead your team with that quiet calmness that he brings to the table. So I think CJ Stroud is a good guy to build around, to reinvent this offense a bit behind a really good offensive line and not have to worry about that aspect, which is the part that people are going to be concerned about for him. And then you don't have to worry about all the extra stuff. You can kind of develop him in any athletic ways that you want to. If you want him scrambling a bit more, if you want him doing read options every once in a while and actually pulling it, you can actually have that in the space. You can still be a run-first system, and then that he can make the right play with the ball and throw a touch and accuracy to all levels of the field and make it look effortless and can make some of these really bad receivers look better.
Yep, 100%. Do you want to alternate?
Yeah, we can alternate for this one.
Yeah, so I also took Stroud. I recently wrote a mock for Football Guys, my mock 1.0. I put Anthony Richardson there. It was right after the combine, and I still think that there's a pretty decent chance that happens. I think – go ahead.
I was going to say, so I think we both think Stroud is – but, he's better in favor. We both probably think he's maybe the best fit for what the coaching scheme might be. But do you think it's a better chance to go Young or Richardson?
Richardson for sure. So I think it's really – I think the report that they don't actually have a set quarterback yet, I think that's true. I think teams go up and they want to control what happens while they finish their evaluations. I think they are seriously considering Anthony Richardson, but this is a franchise fix. CJ Stroud is my QB1. You have the first overall pick. Go get CJ Stroud, who is, by far the most accurate quarterback. And he's the one most set up for success. This team is pretty ready to compete, especially with how the NFC South is looking and that defense and that offensive line. Obviously, they need to add some pass catchers, which we will both get to here in a second. But I don't think taking Anthony Richardson is the move that makes the most sense for this franchise. So I went with Stroud here as well. You can go with your 2, though.
Yeah, and I think, you don't move up from 9 to 1 unless you're 99% sure what guy you're going for. And we still have a month and a half, and that's why I say 99%, because you have to confirm it. You get the pick, you've already done most of the due diligence, but you find every nook and cranny, you get every single detail you need to. And if you really think Richardson, Young are better than Stroud for this team, for what this offense is going to be like for the year 1, year 2, then do it. But Stroud is he's the safest to me. And
yeah,
and he's got, like I said, highest floor. I think Young has the same kind of floor, but with body size and body structure, I have it slightly less. But I think both ceilings are really, really high, and I really do think Stroud is in the Joe Burrow mold of quarterback, and he's going to be dicing up teams for decades, not
Yeah.
decades really, but a decade.
Maybe.
And you could, I mean, you're not going to be able to get Marvin Harrison next year, unfortunately, but you can get a good receiver next year to pair with this team. You can use your free agency money next year to get a top end receiver. And we'll just try and get some building blocks for that offense around him for this year. My second round pick, 39, I went with BJ Ojulari, the edge from LSU. Again, this team's transitioning to 3-4. They really don't have any real good edge rusher besides one of the best in the league in Brian Burns. He got, I think, 85, 90% of their sacks last year. They need someone else to compete with him. Yatir Gross-Matos hasn't been anything.
Nope.
And he is more of a 3-4 edge. But he is a little bit bigger as well. So I think BJ can come in day one and compete to get on the field every third down, every passing situation. But he is one of the higher floor edge rushers. And this team, again, they need another edge rusher day one that can get pressure and help out Brian Burns, because he got a lot of sacks last year with everyone focusing on him. If we can get any help on the other side for real, he's going to be unstoppable, up in the tier that he deserves to be. So I think Ojulari is a great fit. I think that'd be deadly on the outside, especially with the rebuilding offensive line of Tampa and the Saints. They're cap hell every once in a while. I mean, they're about to die from cap hell, and that offensive line is going to suffer. And Falcons, I mean, that offensive line's not great either. So it's just, I think having dominant edge rushers while you're figuring out the offense and you have a great secondary, it's only going to get better with dominant edge rushers. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I love that pick. Ojulari is a guy that I think could sneak into the back of round one. It's just he doesn't feel like a guy that's trending up like a lot of the edge class is. So I think he'll probably be here in this range, and I think this is a good range for him.
I think before Combine, he was about 50, 60 range, and I think he kind of rose, but he's still second round for most people. But top 40 pick is nothing to sneeze at. That's going to be, he's going to be an impact player.
Yeah, for sure.
And you go into your second round, but this is a pick that they could very easily trade back as well. I don't think they're really looking to trade back the rest of these picks, but this pick particularly, going back to 50, or I think Bills are like 51. Maybe the Bills are coming up for running back or a wide receiver or something. But they could trade back a little bit and get another third round pick and get a draft capital for next year, which they're going to desperately need without that first. So yeah. I think that's going to be a question mark here, but I think we did our best at 39.
Yeah, you see teams try to recoup, especially with those. Obviously not the first pick, but second, maybe even the third. I think the third, they're uniquely positioned around a ton of teams that could be looking to move up for certain positions, depending on how the board falls. So I think that makes a lot of sense. My second round pick here at 39, I went with Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of North Carolina. We've talked about Josh Downs a little bit on this show, but just a guy that he excels from the slot, but he can win on the outside. He's a fantastic route runner. He's a little undersized, but he plays bigger. He plays above the rim fairly well. And he's just a dude. He's a baller. I think he's going to be a really good receiver at the NFL level. And I think with the current structure of this wide receiver room, he's probably the best fit for you. For Stroud, he's a guy that can get open. We know what Stroud can do with a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba. Unfortunately, he doesn't get him here, but he does get another guy that can thrive out of the slot and make things happen. So.
Yeah, he can soak up targets, which is what this team needs. And he can get open early, which is, again, what this team is going to need. This is going to be a run-first offense regardless of who's at quarterback.
Yeah.
Just simply because of how this receiving room is. So, yeah, I think Downs is fantastic. They're at a weird spot at 39 to where, if the receiver run, like we started this process, it looked like all receivers are pretty much going to go, in the 20s to 40s. And now they're starting to creep up a bit more. And maybe we get to draft day and, they somehow get lucky and like – Jordan Addison's there or something. Like that's going to transcend their offense. But I don't see that happening right here. So I think Downs is among the best you could get at that pick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, at 93 in the third round, I went with the receiver A.T. Perry, the wide receiver for Wake Forest, Senior Bowl standout, pretty good combine. I don't
Very
know
good
his.
combine. He
Yeah,
ran fast, man. He
he
ran
ran
way
fast, but
faster than
I
I
wasn't
thought.
sure about the other stuff.
I'm gonna keep
That's
talking. I'm gonna look up his relative athletic
Yeah,
score.
I knew he was at least like a 7 because of that 40, but I wasn't sure if he was like a 9 something or RAS. But A.T. Perry, he's got good tape. He's got really good hands, and he's a bigger body, which they do not have that at all in this room right now. I think he can work adjacent to Paris Campbell, which I brought on the team. Paris Campbell is going to be in the slot mostly. A.T. Perry can be your big body on the outside, and I think he can really take off on this team, getting a lot of targets. I think Paris Campbell is going to, for this kind of team, he's getting 70 plus catches. I think A.T. Perry can get about the same, and we can have kind of a two-headed attack for this offense, really focused on these two guys in the passing game. And A.T. Perry can capitalize on some play actions down the field for you.
Yeah. A.T. Perry, 9.23 relative athletic score, ran a 4.47 at 6'3, almost 6'3 and a half. And then he broad jumped to over 11 feet, which was a 9.86
Yeah. And
on that scale.
I want to say he's 220 as well, right? Or is he 210?
He dropped weight to run faster. He's 198. He was
Holy
also
I think he was 215.
that's I
In
think what he was
college.
listed at, but
Yeah, that's fair.
I think you could have assumed that maybe he was there because of his height, but he's a thinner dude. Um,
Yeah.
but still he plays massive and he's pretty, I mean, he can be physical too, which is exactly what you want. So all right, my third round pick here. I chose to get a pass catcher in a different form. Tucker Kraft here at pick 93, tight end out of South Dakota State. This is an elite tight end class, and I have no idea if this kid is going to be here at pick 93. And I would honestly, if I had to make a bet, he won't be. But I used NFL mock draft database for this, and they congregate a ton of different mock drafts. And he was there. I did 3 iterations, and he was there 2 out of the 3 times. So I decided to take him. Good pass catcher, great athlete. He tested well at the combine as well. I'm gonna look up his relative athletic score while I talk. 9.58 relative athletic score. So an athletic dude. He's getting Dallas Goedert comps, which I think are pretty warranted. 6'4", 254, 4.69 in the 40, and his 10-yard split was 1.59, which is an elite number for a tight end. And you see that on film. He's a good blocker as well. He can play inline. He can split out wide. One of the more underrated players, I think, in this draft at this point. So here at 93, it's tough to pass on that when, I still like Tommy Tremble, and I think Tommy Tremble's a Frank Reich type of tight end. I also think that they're going to need more than one tight end for this offense to properly run, and we cut Ian Thomas. So I went and got a new tight end.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me because they took the shot at Tommy Tremble, but he really didn't work out. So it's kind of, you got to try and figure it out past then. And I don't think you give up on Tremble by any means, but I do think you need to take another swing at this draft for some upside, whether it's the third, the fourth, the fifth round, maybe even sixth that people are following. There's guys going to be later like Will Mallory. That's an athletic piece that I think you could really take a shot on. But Kraft would be one of the best you could get in the third.
Yeah.
So
for what it's worth, Tommy Tremble is still only 22 years old. I believe that's
yeah.
about the same age as Tucker Kraft. So different starting points, but
So what?
yeah, let's see. Tucker Kraft, he is 22. He's actually just a few months younger than Tommy Tremble. So
Yeah, but he's very good.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Fourth round for me at 114. I went with Trevius Hodges Tomlinson, the corner from TCU, a very small boy, but a very aggressive corner and a very good corner. I do think his size is going to drop him to at least the third round, if not middle, late fourth. So taking him here to be a rotational slot for you, your nickel corner, and really be in there anytime Jeremy Chin is not. at slot corner. I think he can really do a lot for you. And this gives you, in my opinion, 4 corners that matter. You really didn't get anything. You didn't get a lot from CJ Henderson last year. You didn't get anything from Keith Taylor Jr. I think he steps in and really locks up your corners, and it's a position you're not worried about unless you're losing someone to free agency. At that point, I think you can rotate people in, and you'll be fine at that point. So that's why I went with him there.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. He actually came out with a more positive relative athletic score from the combine than I anticipated because of normally the small guys, they just inherently aren't good athletes in terms of how much size is weighted, but he still was above 7, which is what you're looking for, especially from a guy that small. I mean, he ran in the 4.4s, he was explosive, like all the things that you would want to see. Shout out to Uncle LaDainian for that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think he's ever going to get out of the slot, but I do think he has a lot of room to grow, and I think he could be one of the better slot corners in 5 years' time when he signed a new contract.
Yeah, for sure. All right, my pick 114. I went with Zach Evans, the running back out of Ole Miss. This kid's stock just keeps on falling. I'm excited to see what he does at the Ole Miss Pro Day. If he runs, what's going on there. He didn't do anything at the combine, which was definitely disappointing. But from a talent perspective and from what Frank Reich is looking from his running backs, fantastic fit. Evans would fit right in line behind this offensive line and be able to kind of carry the load a bit. I think he would certainly split some carries with Deontay Foreman in this case. I think Chuba Hubbard would work in there, but I think you take a shot on Zach Evans if he's here in the 4th round and you're pretty happy with whatever you can get from him. And I think you're probably still going to get a lot out of Zach Evans.
Yeah. I do think he's potential to take over the backfield.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the backs, once we're getting to the 4th and 5th, don't necessarily have that until at least a year or 2 into it. But Zach Evans, if he hits, he's clearly this team's lead back. There's no question. And this team really doesn't. They have an identity with bringing back Deontay Foreman. Chuba Hubbard really hasn't done anything for him. Foreman's really the only back that's gotten anything out of this team. Sans McCaffrey. So I think Evans could really take over in a year's time. And that's exactly why I brought Foreman back for 1 year, because I think there's a chance that they're going to take a shot at one of these running backs, and any one of these guys could really hit and take at least ownership of this backfield going into next year. Doesn't mean they don't take someone else. Sure. 132 for me in the 4th round. I went with Dorian Williams, linebacker from Tulane. I really just wanted depth at this position because, like I said, going to 3-4 and what you have at this position, just strictly as of now being Frankie Louvu, Shaq Thompson, and Brandon Smith is about it, because you're probably not bringing back Corey Littleton unless he's taking a hometown discount contract, which I don't see it.
Discount too. I mean,
a massive discount. Yeah. So even though you are most likely going to have a lot of plays with Jeremy Chin at linebacker, and that's going to, he's definitely going to be a starter at that aspect. I think bringing in a guy with upside of Dorian Williams, a guy that has made a lot of tackles, 78 tackles this last year, 5 sacks, 2 picks, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, a relatively good stat line. Not the best conference, obviously, with the AAC, but, one of the highest tacklers in the conference as well. He's just good frame, good length, great at the point of contact. He still needs to get more functionally strong. He's not the best athlete, so it's a pure cover corner and pure athlete. He's not going to win for you, but I think he can rotate in and make stops for you, which is what this team definitely is going to need at linebacker. And I'd put him at Sam for you to rotate in with Brandon Smith, who's just more of kind of the opposite, just full athlete that needs to work on the tackling still. And and he's still working on the linebacker aspects of the position. So I think they can complement each other and really give you a strong rotational piece out at the Sam position for you.
Yeah, for what it's worth, 17 tackles against USC in their bowl game. Like, that was
Yeah.
kind of his if you didn't know his name then, if you watched that game, I'm sure you heard it many, many times. Just
Yeah,
a
he
massive name.
he when I say he's not like an elite athlete or anything, like he still has pursuit angles. He still can cover. It's just he's not, he's not Tremaine Edmonds. He's
Right.
not this ridiculous athlete at the linebacker position that is pure cover and pure speed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, my pick 132. I went with Yaya Diaby, the edge out of Louisville. The kid that honestly, we talked about the 3-4 aspect, and they need to get some different types of edge rushers in here. I obviously passed on the first four picks on any defensive selections, just with where they're at. I think that they have other routes to it. Uh, However, I think he would challenge for a starting spot or at least a rotational spot. Very explosive off the ball, good bend, really good athlete, and a guy that I think, like I said, he could challenge for some playing time here in year one, especially with Gross Matos not really being a fit for what they're about to transition to, and also being pretty disappointing. I think that's a guy that could get traded, but we didn't do that. Just to a
Yeah,
team that
yeah.
needs that help, but and maybe misses out on free agency. But yeah, I think that Diaby is a solid pick here in the fourth.
Yeah, in the fourth, you're not, you're lucky if someone's a starter. You're really just looking for a rotational piece, and I think he really fits. Like you said, he's giving you a different aspect, a different piece to what you want, and maybe he's not, on the field as an edge rusher per se all the time, or maybe ever really this year, but he would be a 3-4 end for you a little bit more at different times. Just gives you another swing and move piece for you.
Yeah.
Last pick for the fifth round, 146. I went with Eric Gray, running back from Oklahoma. More of like a, draft and fantasy Twitter darling than, actual draft. I think fifth, sixth round is where he's going to go. Smaller back for sure. I think he's like, I'll double here, 5'9", 206. I think he might have weighed in slightly less at the combine as well. But
207 at the combine.
207.
So
That's not bad,
he,
actually.
he gained a
Uh,
pound.
he gained a pound. Tricky. But he did take over the, Oklahoma backfield this last year and really kind of delivered a productive year. Uh, Kind of a smooth, slippery runner, and he's very elusive. Runs very tough, though, so I think he can fit this Frank Reich scheme. And I think he's a good complement to Deonta Foreman. I really, at this point, I'm kind of just counting out Chuba. I think he sticks around, but like I don't think he's past his contract. So I think getting some guy who's going to basically replace him and be a complimentary back for you is what this team's going to do. I think he's going to be really quality RB2 who is a really good receiver as well. And he's very creative in space. So I think he kind of is going to be taking over the Naeem Hines role, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously, with that being said, he's not the pass protector Naeem Hines is. And he just does not have the power anywhere near like a Foreman. So you really either got to have him full dive into this mold that we're talking about of more of a receiving elusive back, or you're going to need to make him functionally stronger if you want him to be more of a 3-down back. In my opinion, that's not the role he has in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fair. I love Eric Gray's film. I think he's
Yeah,
explosive.
this 22 film is crazy.
Among the best in the class, like
Yeah.
arguably, like you can put him up there with like Bijan and Gibbs, and he's right behind them in terms of like who had the best film this year. Charbonnet's probably up there a little bit,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
but
Charbonnet. Jesus.
but
Completely different back, but
Tajay Spears, we've already talked about one Tulane player, but there are guys, of course, but this running back class is deep, and there's a chance that Gray's here in the fifth round, and they should scoop that up. That's a really good pick.
yeah,
Um,
again, another player where the size is dropping him, and I think they're going to capitalize and get a good rotational player.
yeah, for sure. Speaking of rotational players, I didn't like the board here in the fifth round, and so I went with Riley Moss, the corner out of Iowa. Really fluid mover. the white cornerback. That's how you'll know Riley Moss by the end of it. Is he's the white
The
cornerback out
new
there, but
Troy Apke.
yeah. But he has some good film. I'm not a huge Riley Moss fan, but I also think as a day 3 guy, it makes sense to take a shot on a guy who almost tested as one of the most elite athletes. He did test as one of the most elite athletes at the corner position. Ran a 4.45, jumped over 10 feet, vertical 39. He's over 6 foot. A guy that was consistent in keeping Iowa in games, and I do think that there is some concern about his film, and that's why he's consistently available in the 5th round in mock drafts. But with this corner room, you could kind of slide him in as just a rotational piece, a hedge on your CJ Henderson bet, and then you're in good shape. You've got JC Horn, you've got Dante Jackson, you're in fine shape there, but you need some guys past that. So, and also, I think he
Yeah.
can play special teams, and that's important
With
here.
his athleticism and his speed, he should be an elite gunner. I know, at least from what I've more heard, I won't even gather that I've really watched a lot of him at this point. But he's not like a strong tackler. He's not necessarily he's
not a strong
physical-ish
player.
player, but he's more of a coverage and ball skills guy and kept them in games that way. So I think special teams wise, I think he can get down there. Let's just see if he can finish off the plays for him. But even making them way to second can be a valuable thing for a gunner.
Yeah, for sure. And that'll do it for our 2 drafts. So, Randy, why don't you go through your new Carolina Panthers team?
Yeah, the offense will be slightly depressing. I want that pointed out right off the bat. CJ Stroud, your starting quarterback. Deonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, Eric Gray, rotational pieces at the running back position. Left receiver, A.T. Perry. Right receiver, a mixture of Laviska, Terrace Marshall, and Preston Williams. I really don't know who's going to win that spot out of camp, but I do think A.T. Perry wins the spot. We're hoping for Preston, but
yeah.
Slot, I gave it to Paris Campbell for obvious reasons. I think he played a little bit outside this last year. I think he could do it, but he should be a slot guy for you. Ike Ekwonu, Brady Christensen, Bradley Bozeman, Austin Corbett, Taylor Moulton, all back on the offensive line, not touching any of that. I do think they need to bring in some more depth because they did lose some. So looking at that in the 6th and 7th round, as well as your little bit of money left in free agency. Tommy Tremble, this is basically the only tight end I got. I do think they take one in the 6th. I was playing with it at the 5th, but I thought bringing in another running back made more sense with what they could get in the 6th at tight end compared to what they could get at running back. Brian Burns, Yatir Gross-Matos, BJ Ojolari, Cleveland Farrell as your edges. Derek Brown, Shai Tuttle as your D tackles. Didn't really touch that. They did that work for us. Frankie Louvu, Shaq Thompson, Brandon Smith, Dorian Williams, and Jeremy Chin as your linebackers. J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, Jeremy Chin, C.J. Henderson, Trevius Hodges-Tomlinson. Probably all your corners are really touching the field most of the time. Von Bell is your new starting free safety with Xavier Woods in the back end as well. I do think this defense is ridiculous. I do think you're still figuring out I think with Shai Tuttle and Derek Brown, I think you figured out your D tackles. Maybe not like a pure nose tackle per se, but more of a 1 and a 3, more of like a 2 and a 3 tech. Maybe not a pure 1 or 0. But we'll see on that because I believe both are about 320. They're not small D tackles, but they're not like Vita Veas. So we'll see how they transition that one. But I think you have athletic edge rushers, and hopefully with this new scheme, you can really get the most out of Gross-Matos. But Ojolari is the edge rusher of the future with Brian Burns, and you got rotational pieces everywhere. It's just, like I said, the offense, besides the line, and in my opinion, the new quarterback, you're a run-first team that's hoping that A.T. Perry, Paris Campbell, and one of Terrace Marshall, Chenault, and Preston Williams could stick out.
Yeah, I like it. I like the build. All right, mine, CJ Stroud. I would explore a trade for Matt Corral. There was a report today that they want to trade him. I don't know who's taking Matt Corral, honestly. Just a day 2 guy. Maybe you take a shot on him if you're a team that like the Bucks. But outside of that, you're not
Yeah.
trading in division probably. You might. We've seen that more lately, but that's a guy I don't think will be on the roster come week 1 personally. So they might have to go get. They've got Eason on the roster. I think he'd probably be the backup. PJ Walker's a restricted free agent, so he technically I don't think will be back.
Yeah, he'll probably be back. I don't see anyone making a big play for him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So that could be the quarterback room. That doesn't matter. CJ Stroud's the starter. Zach Evans, Deontay Foreman, Chuba Hubbard. I kept Raheem Blackshear around, but I cut Spencer Brown just because I needed some extra money. Wide receivers, Terrace Marshall, Preston Williams as the left, Adam Thielen as your right wide receiver, and Josh Downs in the slot with Shi Smith. I think that's actually a pretty good wide receiver room. I think that's the best you could hope for out of this
Yeah,
offseason.
I'd say your receivers are better, but
Older and well, here's the thing. They still have a clear need for a wide receiver past this year because Thielen's
yeah,
probably it's a 2-year deal that I gave him. It's a 1-year deal because Thielen's probably going to be toast here soon. So, I mean, he's kind of already there. So, yeah. And then same offensive line, not going to go through it. Tommy Tremble, Tucker Kraft at tight end, Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Shai Tuttle, Yetur Gross-Matos, Yaya Diaby, Amari Barno, and Marquise Haynes deserve shouts here because I do think that they could fit a little bit of what they're trying to do with the new defense. I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. Linebackers are all the same for me. Luvu, Thompson, Brandon Smith. Corners, JC Horn, CJ Henderson, Riley Moss, Dante Jackson. And then Jeremy Chin, obviously rotating in as a linebacker and safety and corner. He's going to be all over the place, which is smart. He's their chess piece. And then Von Bell and Xavier Woods. So similar builds. I just attack the offense a little heavier and you attack the defense and have legit pieces to build around. Whereas I'm kind of hoping that some of these pieces step up. So.
yeah, and I do, like I said with that second pick, like I like Josh Downs a lot. I don't think he's a build around piece at wide receiver. I think he's a secondary wide receiver.
That's fair.
And what the board kept falling to me at 39, there wasn't Zay Flowers, there wasn't even Hyatt, there wasn't these like second, third tier receivers that you could be a wide receiver one for a team, especially this team, and eventual 1B, in my opinion. So that's why I went Ojulari because I was like, shit, let's figure out and make a strength of strength like you did for our last one because there wasn't the perfect move at receiver, in my opinion. Josh Downs was by far the best move at 39, for me too. So I understood and like why you did it. It's just there wasn't there, and I thought it was a better value to get him and Perry for my build. With Paris, and that's the other thing. I signed Paris, so getting 2 slots, it's not
tough.
the best build. It just didn't fit for me. So I do again, if it falls like that, trade down from 39 is really not a bad idea. I just didn't have enough will and want to explore it because it's kind of hard to trade back from the second, in these kind of mocks and what you're really going to get back for it and why these teams are trading up. You're not really going to get the right value and the right reasoning of trading up in these mocks. So, but it is a good pick for them to swing, in my opinion. And so is 93, like you said, because it is basically a 4th round pick. It's right at that edge. So trading back and getting maybe another couple 4s and a 5th next year or something isn't a bad call.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds good. That'll do it for this franchise fix of the Carolina Panthers. Let us know how we did. If you're a Panthers fan, reach out to us. Let us know. This is a big offseason for you guys, so I'm excited that you guys get to go on that journey. I'm also excited as a new Bears fan that you gave us DJ Moore. I enjoy that a lot, so thank you for that. We will be back at some point. I just don't know when. What happened?
No, I was just saying, getting DJ Moore is nice.
It certainly is. It's very, very nice. We'll be back. I don't know when. I don't want to promise anything at this point. We're trying.
This is honestly, it's like an insanely busy weekend for me. So, maybe Sunday night.
Maybe.
I think I could probably commit to that. We might be able to record during the week as well and put it out on Friday or something or Saturday. But Yeah, that'd be the kind of situation. But we also might just say screw it and let's just do Monday as a free agent recap as well, and then do a Friday fix as well. So our franchise fix as well. So I think there's multiple ways, but we'll try and get something else out this week, as well as if not, get something out really early next week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Randy, anything else before we bounce?
Nope.
All right. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys next time. Later.